By the time the cops arrived, the HOA president was already tangled in my hedge like an enraged Christmas ornament. She was thrashing violently, shrubbery flying everywhere. Patricia Lunford screamed, one leg hooked in the branches, hair full of leaves, death grip still on the cordless hedge trimmer she had apparently mistaken for a chainsaw. The officer glanced from her to the 10-foot wall of dense green arborvitae, surrounding my yard like Fort Knox, then down to the neat, perfectly harmless 2-foot white picket fence at the front. I leaned against it, coffee mug in hand. Technically, officer, I said. She assaulted the shrubs first. The other cop cleared his throat. Ma'am, you cut through about 12 feet of his hedge. That's destruction of property. It's an illegal fence, she shrieked, kicking wildly as the branches held firm. He's hiding it behind plants. It's a fence by other means. Violates the 4-foot rule. Ma'am, the officer said patiently, there's a 2-foot fence and some bushes, not a 10-foot green menace. She nearly sobbed. The cop looked at me. Do you want to press charges? I took a slow sip of coffee, savoring the sight of the woman who would find me for upside-down trash cans in my own hedge fortress. Oh, I said, smiling. Officer, I want to do a lot more than that. This all started because Maplebrook Estates HOA hated my 6-foot fence. They were not prepared for its successor. My name is Caleb Ward, 38, structural engineer, hobby woodworker, professional introvert. I bought my house because the listing promised quiet, low traffic, family-friendly living. Not a petty regime of clipboard zealots obsessed with beige conformity. I like my privacy. I work from home. I just want to drink coffee in peace without a yappy Pomeranian, making direct eye contact while it poops. So, after a month of surveillance-level scrutiny from dog walkers, I did what any sane person does. Build a 6-foot privacy fence around my backyard. Sturdy, straight, perfectly stained, zero structural issues. It looked catalog-ready. Then came Patricia Lunford, HOA president and full-time menace. Patty was in her late 50s, power walk strut engaged, aggressively highlighted hair, and a voice permanently tuned to public shaming. She treated Maplebrook Estates like a tiny dictatorship, where the Constitution was replaced with a 3-ring binder labeled CC and RS, property values first. She appeared the day after my fence was finished, hovering at my door like an overly perfumed summons. Mr. Ward, she said, eyes scanning my entryway before even greeting me. We need to talk about your structure. My fence. I asked. She handed me a sheet with a triumphant flick. Section 7.2.2.3. No fence over 4 feet in height may be constructed without written approval from the Architectural Review Committee. I blinked. It's in the backyard. Backyard, front yard, spiritual yard. It doesn't matter, she said. Your fence is 6 feet. That's 2 feet of unauthorized verticality. Is that an actual phrase in the rules? I asked. Her smile went razor thin. You'll receive an official notice. She walked off like it was done. Spoiler, it was not. 3 days later, the first violation notice arrived on cream paper with a tasteful maple leaf watermark. Immediate action required. Unapproved fence. Remove or reduce to 4 feet within 14 days or incur fines of $25 per day. I sighed, pulling out the bylaws I had foolishly assumed I'd never need. There it was. 4-foot maximum. No grandfather clause. The previous owner had a 3-foot chain-link fence. Annoying, but not the end of the world. I emailed, Hi, Patty. Fences in the backyard, not visible from the street except at an angle. Can we do retroactive approval? She responded at 3:07 a.m. Caleb. The height alone creates a fortress-like hostility, inconsistent with Maplebrook's open, neighborly aesthetic. Also, you're staying what is not in the approved neutral fencing palette. C. Appendix C. Application denied. The fines began. $25 per day snowballed into a running total attached to every friendly reminder to comply. Apparently, my desire to keep strangers from seeing me in gym shorts was a threat to property values. Patty escalated. She emailed the entire neighborhood, complete with photos taken from the sidewalk, in a newsletter titled Know Your Rules, highlighting a resident insisting on a non-compliant barrier. She offered a community-forward alternative, a 3-foot white picket fence with low hedge visibility maintained at 2 feet. The one thing she didn't know, I actually read things for a living. While she threw CC and RS at me like confetti, I sat down with a highlighter and a notebook, dissecting them like a structural load chart. Pages and pages about fence height, color, materials. One tiny paragraph about keeping landscaping orderly. Nothing, literally nothing, about maximum plant height. Next, the HOA raised the stakes. They scheduled a hearing. If I didn't remove the fence, they threatened to lien. The hearing? 4 folding chairs, for people who already hated my fence. Patty announced, the board has voted. Fence must be reduced to 4 feet within 10 days. Non-negotiable. I looked at the panel of beige cardigan tyrants and smiled. Okay, I said, I'll take it down. Patty looked disappointed. You could tell she'd been warming up for a legal battle. But she had no idea I'm at my best right before flipping a problem inside out. I spent the weekend dismantling my 6-foot fence while Patty power walked past every 30 minutes, pretending not to stare while clearly taking mental victory laps. I cut every panel to 2 feet, knee height, comically low, basically decorative, repainted it friendly white to match the approved palette. I emailed a photo to the HOA. Fence now 24 in, compliant with section 7.2.3. Signed, Caleb. No response for 3 days. Probably processing the real problem. A 2-foot fence blocks nothing. The Monday after the fence came down, a flatbed truck arrived carrying 48 10-foot-tall arborvitae. Lush, thick, evergreen privacy incarnate. I had done my homework. Technically landscaping, not a structure. City code placed no tree height limit in our zone. CC and RS said nothing about maximum hedge verticality. I had a landscaper plant them 1 inch inside my property line, parallel to my newly approved 2-foot fence. The yard now looked less suburban and more like a witness protection safe house. The next day, I was enjoying my new green wall when my Ring camera chimed. Patty, full visor and fury, appeared at the gate. She didn't ring the bell, just stared at the hedge, jaw working. 2 hours later, the email arrived. Caleb, your recent landscaping has created a visual barrier inconsistent with our community's open character. The hedge functions as a fence and violates the spirit of section 7.2.3. Please reduce or remove it within 10 days. Patricia Lunsford, HOA President. I replied, Patricia, section 7.2.3. Regulates fences, not shrubs. Happy to comply with any written rule about plant height that existed when I purchased a home. Signed, Caleb. Patty did not like that. Within a week, I received a landscaping violation notice, citing a rule that didn't exist. Flyers appeared in my mailbox, accusing me of creating a hostile perimeter. Patty led concerned neighbors on slow walks past my hedge, pointing and whispering. She even sent someone to inspect while I was, quote, at work, unaware that my security cameras captured everything. Her landscaping committee member stepped inside the hedge line on my property, poking at trunks with a tape measure, muttering. That's when I looped in 2 people, a certified city arborist and a real lawyer who understood phrases like slander of title and arbitrary enforcement. If Patty wanted to turn shrubs into war, I was going to turn shrubs into exhibits. 2 days later, the city arborist, Dana, walked a line of trees, checked my survey stakes, and reviewed local ordinances. These are fine, she said. You're well within code. Nice hedge, actually. Any law about maximum hedge height? I asked. Nope. We care only if it blocks intersections or sight lines on public roads. This is entirely your property. She put it in writing on official city letterhead. Meanwhile, my lawyer, Elliot Grayson, combed through the HOA's documents with the same clinical detachment I use on load calculations. No rule on vegetation height. What he did find was better. Multiple emails from Patty calling my hedge a provocation. Notes from executive sessions suggesting hiring a contractor to trim it without my permission, and a draft hedge amendment attempting to retroactively ban any plant forming a visual barrier over 4 feet. Not passed yet. When the next violation letter arrived claiming I had to reduce hedge height to 4 feet, Elliot sent a response on his firm's letterhead. The association has no covenant regulating plant height. Any attempt to enforce non-existent rules or trespass will result in legal action for harassment, trespass, and property damage. Patty predictably doubled down. She called an emergency HOA meeting at the clubhouse. I went for entertainment value. She stood at the front with a PowerPoint titled The Hedge Problem, a threat to Maple Brook. Slide 1. Photos of my hedge circled in red like a crime scene. This cannot stand, she declared. If we allow a 10-foot plant wall, what's next? 12? 20? Maple Brook will look like a series of maze experiments. A guy in the back raised his hand. Is it against the rules, though? It violates our aesthetic, she snapped. Our brand, another neighbor said. Which section says we can make him cut it? Patty hesitated. We have broad discretion under community character. Not how any of this works. 3 days later, camera rolling, Patty decided to skip the process. She marched down my side yard with a cordless hedge trimmer, followed by 2 increasingly nervous board members. She stepped inside my 2-foot fence like it meant nothing and started hacking. 12 feet in, a branch snagged her ankle. She went face first into the foliage, screaming. One board member tried to help. The other backed away like he wanted plausible deniability. I walked out hit record and said, Patricia, you are on my property. You have 3 seconds to stop before I call the police. She flailed, hair full of leaves, yelling, I am the HOA. Cops arrived 6 minutes later. They watched the footage, saw the property stakes, the arborist letter. One officer asked, So, the HOA president just decided to do unauthorized yard work on your property? Yep, I said. Patty clutched the trimmer like a security blanket. Ma'am, that's trespassing and destruction of property. When asked if I wanted to press charges, I smiled. Start with a formal report. My lawyer will handle the rest. Elliot went to work. Trespass, destruction of property, harassment, request for injunctive relief preventing the HOA from entering my property or attempting to regulate vegetation unless in the original covenants. He attached security footage of Patty hacking the hedge, her emails about teaching me a lesson, and the bogus violation notices citing rules that didn't exist. Meanwhile, the city opened its own file. Unauthorized cutting of established trees can carry fines. In court, Patty looked smaller. Gone was the assured posture she wore at HOA meetings. The HOA attorney tried to argue the hedge was a de facto fence. Elliot walked him gently into a corner. Show me where de facto fence appears in the covenants. The attorney shuffled papers. It's the spirit of the law. Elliot cut in. Does not override the letter of your covenants. There's a section about fences. No section about plant height. My client complied. You invented a new rule on the fly and committed trespass. Here's a video. Emails followed. The judge, clearly over HOA drama, said slowly, As HOA president, you authorized or personally engaged in trespass and property damage, directly contradicting your governing documents. Counsel, this is abuse of authority. Your client exposed the association to liability. Ruling, HOA permanently enjoined from regulating landscaping height unless a properly adopted amendment passed. Not retroactive to me. They had to pay full replacement costs of the damaged hedge, mature tree value, cover my attorney's fees, and additional harassment/nuisance damages. Patty, personally crossing the line and wielding the trimmer, was liable for part of the judgment. The HOA's reserve fund took a hit. Patty's personal account took an even heavier one. Mandatory board training, and a community vote followed. She was removed as HOA president, 43-7. Total judgment, $78,000. Patty's share, $32,000. When the judge read it, her face went white. She gripped the table, mouth opening and closing like she was gasping for words. $32,000, she whispered, voice cracking. She had to cash out retirement, take a second mortgage, and sell her Lexus just to cover judgment and legal fees. At the community vote, she sat in the back row, arms crossed, tears streaming as neighbor after neighbor explained why they were voting her out.